There is something very peculiar about the fallout from Harry and Meghan's recent visit to Britain. Because once you strip away all the noise, the endless palace sources, royal experts, and anonymous insiders, a much more intriguing story begins to emerge. Harry and his father appear to have figured out how to meet privately, with nobody finding out, no leaks, and no tip-offs. But to understand what happened here, you first have to understand the dynamics of this strange little royal information economy. Whenever you read that palace sources say something, ask yourselves, who are these palace sources? It's usually one of these people. And then there are the intermediaries, the courtiers, assorted men in gray suits who know where everyone is going, who is meeting whom, and what is being discussed. The press needs these people because the royal rota cannot manufacture information out of thin air. Somebody on the inside has to give them something. And information about the Sussexes is valuable currency. The British press is desperate for any insider information on them. Only problem is, they have no sources. The Sussexes have managed to construct a watertight system where the only public messages released are strictly through their spokesperson. For a while, they relied on Kensington Palace and whatever piece of secondhand information they received about the comings and goings of Harry. But despite what the headlines tell you, Harry cut his brother off. The only link remaining between the Sussexes and the firm is through Charles, because Harry, well accustomed to years of being scapegoated, no longer cares about what's said about him. He cares about his father, and his father being able to see his grandchildren before he dies. So when it comes to William, the British press already knows they won't get much valuable information there, just rage briefings about how hurt and upset he is. Whenever Harry is in town, William is forced to be reminded that heir is not greater than spare. After the court loss against Associated Newspapers, publisher of the Daily Mail, where we learned that the judge ruling the case was once an attorney for the defendant, no conflict of interest there, folks, Harry left the court unflappable. He did what he came to do, promote Invictus. Invictus is growing. It's changing lives, and everyone has nothing but positive things to say about Harry. Contrast that with William and his signature Earthshot Prize, an event that has barely any measurable impact. William has no people skills. What comes naturally to Harry makes William look like an alien in a skin suit. This is a major thorn in his side because Harry is in demand. He appeared on a podcast where his face was on enormous billboards all over town. Meanwhile, William was left begging to go on Travis Kelce's podcast.
Did your dad get you into Aston Villa, or is this your own doing?
Absolutely not. My father hates football.
Oh, no.
My family haven't got a particularly long history with it.
Why? Because despite putting out his feelers, indicating how much he wanted to go to Travis and Taylor's wedding, he was not invited. And when it became apparent that he wasn't going to be invited, the press reported that he and Kate would not be attending the wedding. Well, duh. You can't attend if you're not invited. Next, Harry appeared on James Corden talking about football. Now, why would they have to invite Harry to talk about football? Don't they know it's my thing? But the injuries kept piling up. We learned soon after that Meghan's Netflix lifestyle show, which the British press ripped apart despite watching every episode, was nominated for an Emmy. This must have really yanked his chain because shortly after, we discovered that William, too, was nominated for an Emmy.
Nations have delivered a surprising royal crossover, and this time it's Prince William and Meghan Markle sharing the spotlight. Just last week, Prince William earned a Primetime Emmy nomination after his candid appearance on The Reluctant Traveller with Eugene Levy.
Not exactly. You see, last year when William scooted over to meet Eugene Levy, who had not even requested to have him on his show, this was apparently enough to insert himself into the conversation about nominations for an Emmy. It was so outrageous that a reporter from BuzzFeed had to write an article clarifying that William had not, in fact, received a nomination for an Emmy. Chapter 1: The Announcement. When Harry's latest trip was announced and the press learned that he might be bringing his entire family to see the king, the machinery started immediately. The press was practically salivating at the news. Finally, they would get to ambush their prey on UK soil. They would get a chance to see the children's faces and to pick them apart. And as for Meghan, they'd analyze her with forensic obsession, conducting a full audit of every stitch of clothing and piece of jewelry on her body. And most of all, they would get their payday. But it wasn't to be. They were denied. And now that it was revealed that the Sussexes were at Althorpe the whole time, they're hopping mad. And mark my words, folks, somebody will pay. For days, we got a back and forth, enough to give you whiplash about would they or wouldn't they. Buckingham Palace became the story. After it was announced that the Sussexes were going to be hosted at the palace, the rage leaking began. William accused them of emotional blackmail. Kate needed to be protected, and Camilla, for her part, claimed she would stay far away from Meghan. As if Meghan has any interest in seeing Camilla. Meghan hasn't mentioned Camilla in years, if at all. Yet here was Camilla moaning to Carol Malone that she wanted to stay far away from Meghan. And I'm going to get to Camilla in a while, folks. Just stick around. Then suddenly we were told that Harry and his family could not be accommodated because insufficient notice had been given. Short notice. Apparently, a son bringing his children to meet their grandfather, whom he hasn't seen in years, couldn't come anymore because he forgot to RSVP in time? The headlines were as you would expect. Harry humiliated. What they didn't expect was the public response. When the renovations for Buckingham Palace were completed a few weeks ago, we were told that Charles and Camilla, it turns out they wouldn't be staying there after all. It's something about the aesthetics. Now, despite what they tell you, the nearly £400 million renovation bill all came at a cost to the taxpayer, because there is no way the royal family, known for being miserly, is going to pay £400 million out of their own pocket to renovate a property. And so the backlash was immediate.
So do you think Charles is right to say, I'm sorry, we can't put you up?
Absolutely not. It's pathetic. He's pathetic. I mean, it's unbelievable that a son who's in line for the throne, who fought for 10 years in Afghanistan for this country, who loves this country, the only royal who's fought in Afghanistan, all the rest with the chocolate medals on, when they parade through the street, it's pathetic.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, he is the king's son. If he can't get protection when the likes of these politicians get round-the-clock protection, it's unbelievable. And Harry is a decent man. Obviously, he's been attacked from all angles of the press, of the media, and Charles is tied up with the media. And at the end of the day, it's come back on Harry. And to say he can't stay in Buckingham Palace with all them rooms is absolutely, makes Charles look even more pathetic.
Yeah, I wonder.
How could a grandfather finally have his son, daughter-in-law, and grandchildren back in Britain and tell them, sorry, there's just no vacancy at the recently renovated empty 700-room palace? Callers on talk shows were outraged. How could a father treat his own son this way? It exposed the monarchy as weak and petty, and that created another problem, because Charles could hardly defend himself without revealing something he apparently did not want revealed. The press was furious. What came next would send them into orbit. The Sussexes, it turned out, weren't being rejected after all. They were going somewhere else. Chapter 2, The Bone. The Harry Humiliated headline became the story, but it's a story we've all seen from the British press over and over again. Harry had been put in his place. He wanted Buckingham Palace and couldn't have it. Harry had supposedly come crawling back only to discover that the drawbridge had been pulled up. And I thought, there it is. There's William's bone. Because if there's one thing William wants more than reconciliation, it's for the world to believe that Harry has been humiliated. We've been reading variations of this story for years. William won't allow him back. William will prevent his return. William fears Harry may come back and never leave. William will take a hard line. William will show him who's boss. Harry said, fine. And this is just my theory here, folks. Give William what he wants. Let him have his headline. Let him enjoy it. Because my theory is that Buckingham Palace was the decoy all along. Chapter 3, The Decoy. Just as soon as it was announced that Buckingham Palace would not be accommodating the Sussexes, the news pounced upon us like a leopard out of a tree. Harry, Meghan, Archie, and Lilibet had all met with Charles at Highgrove. And that's when it hit me. What if Harry and Charles never intended to have this reunion at Buckingham Palace? What if it was always going to happen at Highgrove? Think about it. If Harry is bringing Meghan, Archie, and Lilibet back into Britain, and his principal concern for years has been security and press intrusion, why on earth would he allow the location of his family to be revealed? He wouldn't. So you need a diversion. And Buckingham Palace is perfect. Let them argue over Buckingham Palace and over rooms and short notices. And more importantly, let William rage. Let the newspapers print Humiliated. Everyone gets something to chew on. Meanwhile, Harry goes to Highgrove, and that is exactly where the reunion was going to take place all along. The Guardian reported that Charles met Harry, Meghan, Archie, and Lilibet at Highgrove. Vanity Fair subsequently described the arrangement as top secret and reported that William and Kate had not been told it was happening. If the objective was to keep William, the press, and the larger Palace Information Network away from the real meeting, it worked beautifully. William got his humiliation headline. The newspapers got their family drama. And Harry got everything he wanted. Protection for his family on his terms. No leaks, no Rhoda, and no... Camilla? Hang on a bit longer, folks. I'm going to get to her. Chapter 4, The Test. Harry does not trust his father's household. That much has been clear for years. He has written extensively about palace courtiers. He has made clear his distrust of Camilla's relationship with the press. After years of private conversations finding its way onto newspaper headlines, there would be very little point in rebuilding a relationship with Charles if Charles couldn't keep anything private. So perhaps this was Charles's test. Can you keep your mouth shut? Can Harry tell his father something without immediately reading about it in the Daily Mail? And remarkably, Charles appears to have managed it. Vanity Fair reported that Charles himself was adamant that the meeting remained private and that the Waleses were not informed beforehand. Chapter 5, Camilla. Now here's where things become murky. The official reporting tells us Camilla was there. The Guardian, ITV, and others subsequently reported that she was among the group at Highgrove. But I have questions. You might recall last September, Harry met with his father on one condition, that Camilla be banished from the room. And do you know what Charles did? He sent Camilla out of the room. For all we know, the plan to meet at Highgrove might have even been conceived at this very meeting, and that it would have to be kept a secret. If the king leaked, he would be deprived of what he wanted, to see his grandchildren. If it made it to the headlines, Harry would know that it had been leaked to Camilla. That was Harry's test for Charles, and somehow, remarkably, Charles passed that test for the first time. Because if Camilla had really been at Highgrove, she would have enjoyed unfettered access to the entire conversation. And I find it remarkable that we have been given so little about what was said. Here's what I think, folks. Camilla wasn't there at all. Just like last September, she was not invited. By the time she caught wind that the entire House of Sussex were meeting with the king at Highgrove, she slogged off her muddy boots, hastily pulled on a frock, and hightailed it over to Highgrove. Except, by the time she arrived, the meeting had already concluded, and Camilla, like the rest of them, was left standing in the dust. This is why I think she was able to pull from Charles a concession by having the press report that she was there. Chapter 6, The Money Shot. And then it became apparent just how badly the press had been outmaneuvered, because Meghan and the children were in Britain the entire time, staying at Althorpe. And the press, they got nothing. They didn't get to descend upon the Sussexes, to surround them, to pick them apart, just like the old Diana days when photographers simply appeared wherever she was, shoving cameras in her face. Wherever Diana was, her location was always leaked. And you know, folks, I always wondered who kept leaking Diana's location. One day I might decide to do a video on that. Before the press had a chance to fully enjoy their humiliation story, they discovered they had been thwarted yet again. Their prey had evaded them. And then Meghan did something that annoyed them even more. She posted her pictures. Her pictures. She gets to decide what the public sees of her children. Not the photographers, not the royal rota, but Meghan. That is the part they can't stand. When Charles found out that they were all decamped at Althorpe, it made him look mean. He felt left out. The Spencers have always despised the Windsors. They blame them for what happened to Diana, so there's no love lost there. William himself is estranged from the Spencers. He can't order them around, demanding that they shun Harry like he does to all the others, punishing anyone who dares to speak to him. William has chosen his side, and he knows, as much as he would love to, that he can't punish the Spencers. He has no control over them. Back in 2017, William and Kate visited Diana's grave at Althorpe, posed for pictures, and nobody clutched their pearls. But when Meghan released photographs merely showing the children on the grounds of the estate, suddenly civilization itself appeared to be under threat. One publication called the pictures vulgar, another detestable. Make no mistake, folks, they are livid. Meghan denied them the exclusive, their money shot. And you know what that means? Somebody has to pay. Chapter 7, The Fallout. After the visit, suddenly we got this headline that William is angry and so bitter with resentment that it's tearing Kate apart. The story was initially published by a publication called Heat World, which cited, you guessed it, an anonymous insider as the source. Now, folks, if you want a clue about who these anonymous sources may be, simply look at who comes out looking bad, but more importantly, who comes out looking good. William is portrayed as irrational, bitter, and consumed by rage, while Kate is portrayed as the poor, long-suffering wife, the peacemaker, having to endure all of it. Because everybody was left looking foolish, and the press wants their pound of flesh. William is once again proving to be more a liability than an asset. he can't keep a lid on his anger long enough to allow the press to suss out the Sussex's location. Every time he whinges about how angry he is, it tips them off, letting them know that their cover is blown. So they set the perfect trap. And William's celebration was short-lived. And one of the most interesting developments came almost immediately afterwards. Clive Alderton, the king's enormously powerful principal private secretary, the man Harry nicknamed the Wasp, announced that he will leave his role next year. In Operation Highgrove, he is perhaps the first domino to fall. Stay tuned, folks.